All right. Welcome, everybody, to a long awaited episode of Grizzly's Cave. This is Grizzly Andrew, and I have a very special guest. This is actually going to be part two with this very special guest. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to say thank you to all the fans that made it to the last NAW wrestling event that we had this past Saturday. We had a great turnout, and the crowd was on fire for it. Definitely appreciate your support. The next show will be Saturday, June 14th at 7 p.m. at the Nebo Community Center in Nebo, Kentucky. Doors will open at 6 and the show will start at 7. And ticket prices are as follows: free for anybody ages 0 to 5, $5 for anyone ages 6 to 12, and then anybody over the age of 12, it'll be $8. Concessions will be available, and it is a family friendly promotion. And I promise you, folks will not be disappointed. I also want to plug the GoFundMe account that I've plugged on previous episodes. It is Help Ben Build a Future for Indie Wrestling Stars, and the link is gofund.me/9 B as in boy, 2 F as in Frank, C as in Charles, 903. And also, for those of you who know Kenny Cotton, I've only met him on a couple of occasions. Really nice guy. Apparently trained a lot of wrestlers uh, over time. Sadly, his wife passed away unexpectedly over the weekend. So, if you folks could definitely keep him and the family in your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. And Mr. Cotton, if you happen to hear this, definitely you are in our thoughts and prayers, and definitely reach out to us if you need anything. All right. Well, folks, a lot of people have been asking for a part two with this guest, and I do apologize, folks, for being so spacious with episodes because of this job that I've had working third shift Monday night through Friday night. It's been kind of hard to do episodes, but we're going to make it happen. So, this man is one heck of an individual and an incredible wrestler, and he's definitely become my brother and my best friend. And it's an absolute honor and a privilege to have him again on Grizzly's Cave. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my guest at this time is the one and only JC Flash. JC, it's good to have you back on Grizzly's Cave, and like I said, it's an honor and a privilege to have you back. And I hope you're doing all right, buddy.
It's an honor to be back on it. I know it's been a while, and I have had a lot of fans ask me, "Hey, when are you going back on there?" So, I mean, you're catching ground and going with it. So, I know the way that you've been working, the way I've been working. It's just kind of hard to get together and get this out there. And it's just a complete honor to be back on this thing because man, I love just sitting back, and just cutting, talking wrestling, just cutting the crap with you. I always have fun. So, and I do want to, I know you did a shout out to Kenny Cotton. Kenny Cotton means it's a word to me. He is one person that got me into this business, and I couldn't thank him enough. His wife was a sweetheart. Don't get me wrong, she was tough as nails though. I mean, she'd tell you like it was and everything like that. But I don't got nothing but good things to say about her. You rest in peace. Love you, and this, this ain't a goodbye. This is a see you later.
Yes, sir. Um, I think, like I said, I met him. I think the first time I met him, it was I think the July show of last year, and then I think it was the show that we had this past Saturday. That's about the only two interactions I've had with him. But I mean, he's always been very respectful and real nice guy to me. So, and I've heard a lot of the other wrestlers that have had nothing but good things to say about him. Um, whenever we ended at the last show, actually, let me backtrack right quick. So on the last show, you had said that you were a fan of Sting, and
Yep.
I was going to tell. I don't know if I did mention this on the last episode, but I was a fan. And folks, please don't give me. I hope I don't get a lot of heat with folks about this, but Ultimate Warrior and JC knows this, but Ultimate Warrior was my favorite wrestler. And for those of you that don't know, Warrior and Sting were tag team partners when they first broke into the business back in the mid '80s. They started out as Power Team USA out in California, and then they eventually ventured over to the late Jerry Jarrett's promotion over in Memphis at Continental Wrestling Association, and then they became the Freedom Fighters. And then after that, they went to Bill Watts's Mid South territory, and then they became the Blade Runners. And then it was at one point during that run, Warrior wound up leaving, and he went to the Von Erichs World Class Championship Wrestling. However, Sting, he was known as Flash at the time, and Warrior was actually Blade Runner Rock. So, but yeah, it's really ironic how my best friend here, his favorite wrestler was Sting, and mine was Warrior. Now, this is a flat out shoot, but between the two, Sting was a much better athlete performer than Warrior was. I mean, Sting could go out there and have great matches with like Ric Flair, Lex Luger, Hogan, Rick Rude, and stuff. Warrior, he could kind of have a good match here and there, if he really wanted to. But I think maybe I could count 5 good matches that he had throughout the course of his career. But Warrior was my motivation to start working out and build my scrawny body up. So, but anyways, I'll JC, if you wanted to add to that, feel free to.
Yeah, I mean, Warrior had good matches. The one match, I told you about, the SummerSlam '90 with Rick Rude.
Hmm.
I know it was a cage match, it was a gimmick match, but that was just a real good match. But I mean, it's kind of hard to have a bad match with Rick Rude. In my opinion, Rick Rude was one of the greats. And uh, but I think Warrior. I mean, I give Warrior his props. I think Warrior at the early, like when Sting and Warrior broke up and went to separate ways, I think Warrior had a better gimmick. I think Warrior had a better entertainment because where he went.
Hmm.
Sting was more like an independent dude. Just he really never at the time. I mean, he finally started getting, the scorpion on his pants and starting, But then you looked over in WWF at the time, and you got Warrior, like this gimmick, this entertainer, this everything. Sting, of course, I agree with you. Sting was the better wrestler, but I think Warrior was the best entertainer, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yes, yes,
You
because
know, I've always thought that.
right, he had that it factor. Whenever when his music hit and he came to the ring, I mean, the fans, they jumped out of their seats and stuff, and he came running to the ring and going to
And you
all
got to
corners.
think about this too. About that is you got Sting, who was another big baby in NWA at the time.
Let's see, Dusty
Yes.
Rhodes.
Okay, so you had Sting and Dusty. Okay, just say that.
Hmm.
Look at what Warrior went up against.
Hmm.
Warrior had, you know, uh, the God forbid, the God of wrestling, it don't work for me, Hulk Hogan, and well, I got props at for over 2 years, Warrior was larger than life.
Hmm.
He outspringed Hulk Hogan, and I think that's why. Let's cut it,
Sure, I feel you.
and that's what happened. Where in Sting's eyes, he was over learning from Dusty, learning from the American Dream, learning from Ric Flair. learning his craft. Well, Warrior was over fighting for his craft.
Mhm.
So, like I told you before, that, his promos, if you really sit and listen, go back and listen. I encourage all of y'all to go back and listen to Ultimate Warrior's promos. Yes, does he go off track? Yeah. If you take 100% of his promo, you're going to understand probably 30% of it.
Mhm.
The rest of it's going to be off the wall. But everything, if you really listen, he got every point out.
Yeah.
Took him a little bit, but he did. Now, Sting, on the other hand, at the beginning, Sting wasn't very good at promos, and then he developed and got better and better and better, you know.
Mhm.
And Sting's character really did not pick up until he become, the Black, all darked out, whatever, the Crow, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
That's when his character really stepped up.
Yeah.
He was a young, blonde beach boy. The crowd loved him. Hell, I loved him. That's what got me into the business, okay?
Mhm.
So, he was very loved, but at that time, Sting said it himself, that he was jealous of the Warrior because Warrior's over at WrestleMania 6, headlining the biggest show of them all, and fighting Hulk Hogan for the title.
Mhm.
And Sting's over there. Ultimate Warrior's working in front of 50, 60,000 people at the Thunderdome, and Sting's over there at the Coliseum working in front of 3,500.
Mhm.
So Sting had a harder road by getting big than Warrior had a smaller run,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
he got big really quick.
Mhm.
I wonder every day, what if Sting would have went to WWE and Warrior would have went to NWA?
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
would Sting be the Warrior? Because it's still Vince's creation.
right.
You,
Well,
you know what I mean? So
my
it make you think about it.
so I think had Sting went to Vince back at that time, which Warrior went there in '87, mid '87.
Yeah,
I think they would have done a lot with him just because of Sting's look, but the fact that he was very athletic and could have really great matches. I
yeah,
still think he would have got that push. Now, had Warrior that brought that to, you know, over there, I think it would have. Do you remember you remember the gimmick Van Hammer?
yeah,
Okay, I think it would have been kind of a short run like that, or even, or even that short run that the Renegade had back in '95 when that was basically their version of the Ultimate Warrior. I think it would have been kind of a start and stop run. It wouldn't have lasted for too long if Warrior went to NWA as opposed to Vince. So that's just my opinion.
oh yeah, yeah. I love your opinion. It makes sense. You know, I mean, uh, I'm glad it worked out for both of them. That's one thing a lot of people can't say. Back in the '80s, it was a tag team. Both of them. These guys was party builders. Some, they seen them like, oh my God, look how big they are, and let's turn them into the new Road Warriors, and just they wasn't even, about it. You know what I mean? And then all both of them come from nothing to WWE Hall of Famers, larger than life on both ends. Don't got nothing but praise for both of them.
Hmm.
Because you just don't see that, especially anymore. But back in the '80s, you didn't even see it. Back in the '90s, you didn't even see it.
Hmm.
If you was in a tag team, one guy's going to make it if you separate. The other guy's just not going to do it. The only body else that I can say that made it, and I guess this was in the 2000 and Of course, Edge was bigger than Christian, but Christian wasn't too far behind him.
Right.
You know, if you think about Shawn Michaels and Martin Jannetty, Shawn Michaels made it. Think about Bret Hart and Jim the Neville. Bret Hart made it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the list goes on, just like in WCW, Booker T and Stevie Ray. Well, look what Booker T's at. What Stevie Ray had.
Right.
You know,
Stop.
look at Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner.
Right.
You know, Scott Steiner done a whole lot more than what Rick Steiner did. You know,
The Skyscrapers, Sid Vicious,
yeah,
Dan Spivey, Doom. You know, Ron Simmons went on to great things, whereas
yeah,
Butch Reed, it just kind of stopped for him. Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah, you just don't see it. I mean, you know, and I think a lot of it is in the booking. I think a lot of it's in the heart of the worker. You know, you got tag team, and you looking at one guy, and you're like, this guy really wants it. This guy just wants to stay as a tag team, so let's push this guy. And I understand it because at the end of the day, if you get left behind, it ain't nobody fault but your own.
Right.
Now, if you're out there busting your butt off and you're doing everything you could do and you're still not getting pushed, then okay, time for you to leave and go find something else.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know,
Um,
but yeah.
no, you can go ahead. Whatever.
No. I was just gonna, I was just saying, yeah.
So, with that being said, we'll get back to that. I don't want to
Okay.
I don't want to steer away too much because I need
You
to
know we can.
yes, for those of you that are just hearing this for the first time, me and JC Flash, we have had 5 6 hour long conversations. The only time there's ever a break is if he hits a spot that's a dead zone or something like that. But we have been notorious for having really long phone conversations. Unfortunately, though, we can't do that with the sound recording app that I've got. It only permits us up to 3 hours at the most. So,
We can always stop and go back.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We can call that the dead spot.
That's right.
Oh man.
Lord have mercy. All right. So, right when we had ended the last episode, we had ended right before you were going to tell me when you broke into the business. So, you take however much time you need and just go ahead and tell the folks how you broke into the business and who trained you and etc. So, you go ahead, buddy.
But I appreciate it. Well, the born of JC Flash, 2003, and well, I trained a little bit, I guess, before then. But this is how I went. I got a job at at Madisonboro Tire, a local tire shop here where I'm from, and this guy was working with me. His name was Kenny, Little Kenny. That's what they always called him. Never called him Junior, just Little Kenny. When he was working, he was kind of like my trainer, showing me how to do stuff. Me and him was talking, and of course, me talking about wrestling. And he was like, "You like wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah, you don't?" He was like, "Yeah, I mean, I kind of, yeah, I mean, I like wrestling." He said, "Have you ever done it?" And I was like, "No, man, that's my dream to become a wrestler, And he was like, "Well, my dad got the ring in his backyard." I was like, "Shut your face." And he was like, "No, really, he does. He got the ring, and they train every weekend, and sometimes they train during the week." I said, "Are you serious? Like, how much does he charge? I mean, you think I can get in that?" And he was like, "Well, sure." He was like, he's always willing to have more people. And he got me his dad's address, and that Saturday morning I showed up, and I was nervous. I was just a young kid, and I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into, and I showed up to the place, and I was like, "Hey, I introduced myself to Kenny Cotton, and great guy." And I was like, "How much is it, to train?" And he was like, "Man, I'm charging people like $500 to train them." And I was like, "Really? That's it?" And I kind of got that look like, well, I should have charged him more. But he was great. I paid him I think that day I paid him $100, and the only reason why I mention this money because it'll make sense in a minute. And I got in the ring, and one of my guys was here, Rowdy Red, and longtime friend, long time. I've shared the ring with him many a times. Always had good stuff with him, and he was there, and they wanted me just to bump, and I got into the squad circle, and I swear my eyes just lit up. I mean, it was like the greatest thing ever to step in between them ropes. Stepped in between them ropes, and I took my first bump, and I was like, that ain't too bad. And I just kept bumping and just kept bumping and kept bumping. And I bumped that one day. I bet I bumped. If I didn't bump 500 times, I bumped 1,000. And I remember Red tapping me on my head and saying, "We'll see if we see you tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna be back tomorrow." You'll find out. We'll find out tomorrow. So we go home, and I go home sore. Oh man, I'm so sore. Next morning, I did not want to get out of bed, but I made a promise that I would be back. What I do? I was back. Training started at 9. I was sitting in Kenny Cotton's yard at 8 o'clock,
Mm.
8:30, something like that, and everybody started showing up, and Cotton come up to me, and he bent down, and he training people for a long time, and he said, "I gotta say, you're the first person that ever do that, and you just, I can just see it in you. So you don't owe me nothing else." And I never. And my training started, and started training, and I got Red taught me some stuff. Then Viper and Grunge called Damage Incorporated. They come down. They started working with me and a few other trainees, and they taught us the universal spot, and it was just amazing to be able to do all that. It just like a dream come true, and that's really what I guess it was. It finally did, and I finally had I trained with Cotton for about a year, I guess, and I went to Cotton was running a show in Princeton, Indiana, and he needed some more people, and I got a buddy that was training with us. A little bit after I started, he started, and his name is James. And we grew up together. My family pretty much raised him. And if anybody don't know who James is, it's Alexander Cage's brother, older brother. And excuse me. And so excuse me. And so we went up there. Didn't have no gear, we were just some scrangly people, going up there, and we set the ring up, trained a little bit right before, and me and James went out there and we had a match. Boy, was it awful.
Mm.
Boy, it was not a good match.
Mm.
And but I had my first match, and I got my feet wet, and it kind of took off. We was running Princeton, Indiana, every month, and I was learning my craft. And what's funny about that is me and James had our first match the same night that Justin Styles and Sexy Sid had their first match.
Mm.
And we really didn't know them. I mean, we knew of them, but we did not know them. I mean, we was like a deer in headlights, okay? And we just kept our head down, and me and James already made the pact that we're just going to keep our head down, and we're going to listen. And that's what we did. We never said nothing. Kenny Cotton would come to us and tell us what he wanted. We go out there and do it, and then we would go back to the locker room, keep our head down, and listen. So he should did better, what we done, whatever, and I can't stress that so much today that so many these new wrestlers coming into the business needs to do that, and so started doing that, and we ended up having a show. Um, Cotton finally got his promoter's license, wrestling promoter's license and stuff, and we had a show down there at the school down there. And if anybody don't know what that's at, it's just a little bitty hick town that, you blink your eyes, you'll miss it. But that was my very first Kentucky show, and I call my home show. And we knocked it out of the park. My cousin was wrestling by then, the American Warrior. We had a lot of fun in them days. But the problem about that is I wasn't learning nothing because I was working the same people, wasn't learning nothing, wasn't doing, I guess, a justice. Because the only way you can make a wrestler a better wrestler is put him in uncomfortable positions,
Mm.
and he's got to see. If you work the same person day in and day out, you're not going to get no better. So we done that for couple 3 years. I got a tag team partner, DC Flash. Loved the man to death, like a brother to me. Me and him started running as the Flash Brothers, and we was tearing it up. We was the National Guard Armory. It was sellout every month. We was packing that place out, and it wasn't just us. I mean, we had, like I mentioned before, Viper and Grunge. We had the Kansas City Rough Riders, T-Boat and Timber. We had a lot, upper class. Upper class is like the most group people, and I mean, it was a lot of fun. It really was, but all good things come to an end. So that ended, and this is when it gets very interesting. When that ended, I went to Evansville,
Mm-hmm.
and I started working for this guy named Master Rich. Well, let me back up just a little bit. Null Wrestling, the company that I'm running now with partners, um, Damage Incorporated, come up with the company, and they was running it there in Madisonville after Cotton shut down.
Mm.
And I was being a security guard for them. It's amazing how full circle. I was thinking back in the day, man, imagine wrestling for this company, imagine doing this, and now I'm a part owner in it. So my best advice to anybody out there, young, old, no matter who, you got a dream, don't never give up on it, because I'm a proven fact that dreams come true in a lot of ways. But they ended up shutting down. Me and Johnny Richardson, as he used to go by Master Rich, we become good close friends through Noel. He was like, "Hey man, I'm thinking I'm going to start open a show down there in Evansville. Won't you come down?" Well, I'm like, "All right, let's do it." He was using my ring, and I went down there. And oh my Lord, I thought I knew how to wrestle, y'all. Well, they taught me real quick I didn't know how to wrestle,
Mm.
because a lot of it was I didn't know psychology, because a lot of people didn't know psychology, about how to put a match together, how to call in the ring, how to do all the back the scenes. I don't like pulling the curtain back too much, but psychology, if you don't know psychology, you don't know how to wrestle. You might know how to do the moves, but you don't know how to wrestle. It's a totally different thing. And so I went up there and I started working, Tracy Smothers's, and started working Pothead Johns, and started working Doug Gilbert's, Dutch Mantell's, and all these great legends, and I thought, like I said, I thought I knew how to wrestle. Well, boy, they taught me I didn't know how to wrestle. I think I got beat up more times than I wrestled, and deservingly, because I didn't know what I was doing. Well, what was the first thing I said? I kept my mouth shut and kept my head down and listened.
Mhm.
and that's what I did there. And we took a, I took a beating. Absolutely didn't like it, but absolutely understood it, and it made me become a better wrestler. It really did, and I owe it all to Johnny because Johnny was putting me in them positions that he didn't have to, but he seen something in me more than I seen in me, and it's always good to have a friend or have a person like that to have your back when you can't even have your own back.
Mhm.
And I started going at it, and that's when I really learned my craft. That's when I really felt. Because for the longest time, I was nervous. I was scared. Have you want to say it? When I was working different people, I was like, oh man, man, this ain't. I don't think I'm good enough to work these guys. I don't think I'm good enough for this. I always doubted myself. I never thought I was good. Never thought nothing like that. I mean, I always did. And it was more when I started working them guys. You know, I was scared to death. And then we go out there, and after a while, we was having clinics. We was having great matches. We was knocking it out of park with Bobo Bazil Jr., Gypsy Joe, Blackie West. I mean, the list goes on. Tebow, I mean, the list goes on. But the thing about it is I think they beat the scariness out of me.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it because I was scared I would mess up because I was so. I will never forget it. Me and Doug Gilbert was in the ring, and I punched him, and man, I connected. Boy, did I connect! And I was like, well, here comes this receipt, and um, he never did receipt me. We got back to the back, and he was like, all right, kid, come here, and that's he taught me how to protect myself and how to protect the business and how to protect my opponent.
Mhm.
That lesson, a lot of people don't understand the lesson that I was taught that day, and it ain't enough stuff I can say about the good old man Gypsy Joe. Gypsy Joe got me over a lot of fears, and I miss him. I love the man, and I'll tell you a little story about him. And he he was a guy that, hit me harder, you motherfucker. And that was his glimmer. When I met him, he was like 78, I think,
Mhm.
77, and he was still wrestling just like you know me and you. I mean, just keep on. I mean, he just like he just kept going. There's a funny article about it. Is Gypsy Joe was known for chops, and it was an article that I still got in my dresser drawer about Gypsy Joe fighting Shawn Michaels in the '80s, and Shawn Michaels went on record and said that he would never wrestle Gypsy Joe again
Really?
because of his chops. He said, I ain't never been hit as hard as he hit me. And I got that at home in my dresser drawer, come out in a magazine back when they were still doing magazine, I guess in the late 90s. But it was the wrestling issue. It, yeah, I still got it at home too, and it's the article still in there. And I mean, it's amazing that that is being said.
Mhm.
Um, because at the time they done an article on Gypsy Joe because he was the oldest living wrestler at the time.
Okay.
So that now the story about me and Gypsy Joe is we were sitting back here in the back, and the promoter said I was going to team up with this guy. I didn't know the dude, you know. I was like, hey man, you good? You know, he's like, oh yeah. And we was working Gypsy Joe and Blackie West. So we go out there, and oh my lord, I've seen a lot of shoots. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, and I ain't never felt sorry for nobody in the business because 90% of the time they deserve it. I'm not saying this guy did not deserve it, but I really thought Gypsy was going to get a charge.
Really?
I was terrified for that kid, and I tagged myself in, and I went in there, and Gypsy told me when I got in there, he said, "Do not tag that mother effer back in here."
Oh shit.
And I said, "Okay." And we, when we ended up finishing the match, and um, the next month come along, and nobody didn't want to work Gypsy because he was hard to understand. You know what's going to happen. You're going to get the heck beat out of you, and you're going to get chopped. You're going to get, you know, it's just going to be just a downright fight. So a lot of people didn't like working him, and understandable so, But I don't know. I was in the back, and I was starting to get a little bit of momentum in that company, and a little bit of respect, I guess I want to say, from my peers, and that's the main thing. If you can't get respect from your peers, then you ain't never gonna make it in this business because that should be the number one goal in your life in this business is to if you're gonna become a wrestler, get the respect for your peers because that can make your life a living hell, and that can make your life the greatest wrestling life you ever have. Okay. Anyways, I was sitting back there, and the promoter comes through and says, "Hey, who wants to work Gypsy?" And of course, nobody's not raising their hand. I'm looking around like saying somebody else is gonna raise their hand, and I was like, "What the heck? I work him." I raised my hand, and of course, everybody looks at me like I'm crazy, And so, I went to Gypsy, and I was like, let's work. I said, but we're gonna do one thing different. He was like, "What's that?" I was like, "We're gonna have a chopping match."
Mm.
And he just looked at me like I was retarded, and I probably was. That's probably what's wrong with me now. I probably still am. But we go out there, and that's what we did. And it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. My chest was bleeding. I mean, he beat the living crap out of me. And I was giving that old man, I swear to you, everything I had. And it wasn't nothing. I mean, his chest was like red, and it just started bleeding. After 2 chops, my chest was bleeding.
Oh wow.
I had to give him, 10 chops to bleed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was bruised for 3 weeks after that, but, you know, that match ended. And when I walked back to the curtain, that's when I knew that I had to respect other peers. That's when everything was like, all right, I got this. And then after that moment, it didn't matter who he put me in the ring with. I didn't care. I walk anybody. I wasn't scared no more. I go out there and walk anybody. Was I nervous? Yes, you should always be nervous. But I wasn't scared no more. And that's a big difference. And go out there and walk anybody. And that's when I really started learning my craft. That's when I really started learning this business. And a lot of it goes to Johnny. It really does, because if Johnny did not give me that opportunity, I would not be where I'm at today. And I always give credit where credit's due. I've had a lot of people go around and said, "Oh, I trained him. I done this. I done that." No, no. You started me, yes, but all them great legends I mentioned, they trained me because they taught me what the business was about.
Mm-hmm.
They taught me how to carry myself. They taught me how to deliver myself. And they taught the most important thing they taught me is when you walk out to that crowd, I become J.C. Flash. When you walk back through that curtain, I become Josh Cowan. And I was so glad that I was taught that, because nowadays people wants to go out and be whoever and then come back and still be that person.
Right.
That's not what this business is for.
Mm.
You know, and I'm not saying go buck wild and go tell everybody who you really are or nothing like that. I can't stress enough about keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, keep your eyes closed, and listen and learn the business. And if you learn the business, then you can be the business.
Yes, sir.
And I did that for a while, and then really didn't have a falling out with Johnny. It was just, I think I've done everything I could do there, worked everybody I could work, and I was trying to move up in life, and I come back to the States and started working for promoters around here, working for promoters, and started working for NWA, one of my great success, and worked for NWA main event for a while, and just really started earning my stripes in this business, and started doing everything I could do to make it. And I think I might would have had a shot that made it big. I want to tell myself that. But it really wasn't. I mean, if WB started calling me, if WBF would have called me or WCW would have called me, well, of course I would have won. You can afford not to, because who don't want to live out their dream like that? I mean, everybody does. But I did not make the effort, I guess the best way to say it, to do that. All I wanted to do was wrestle. I didn't care if I wrestled in WWF or WCW or, for New Focus Wrestling or KWA or NAR or NWA Main Event or, the list goes on with companies, CWL, and then I went and worked for this guy named Randall Conrad, and he's gone. God bless his soul, rest in peace. But I couldn't stand him. Could not. He was an arrogant prick. He put some stuff out there on me that I didn't have nothing to do with, and like he was trying to. I don't know what he was trying to do. I don't know what was in his mindset. They was coming to Madisonville and they wasn't drawing. A lot of them told him to get me, bring me in, and he wouldn't. And they ended up leaving because they couldn't draw. And I'm not saying that I could have packed the place out, because that's one thing you can ask Andrew. I don't got a big head, never will have a big head. What I've done in this company is I earned what I've got, but I don't think I'm larger in life. I won't never think that, because that's just not me. And anyways, fast forward a little bit, and pretty much wrestling kind of come to a stop for a little while. And I just started focusing on my kids and started focusing on that, and then ended up having a wreck. A guy hit me from behind and messed some nerves up on my neck. Of course, the people said I'd never be able to wrestle again. At the time, it really didn't bother me, because I wasn't wrestling anyway. I kind of lived that, I guess that, that childhood out. I don't know how you want to say it. And then my buddy called me one day and was like, hey, this company's running over here. Do you want to come back? And I was like, let me see if I can get cleared. went and got cleared from the doctor and started working for Rowdy Red's company, and had a lot of fun. We done a lot of good stuff, and then me and Derek and Randall and Harold got together one day and we were just talking. We was like, hey, what do y'all think about bringing Nall back? I'm like, really? Let's do that. I'm down. And so we bought Nall out of the old dresser drawer and started running Nall, and that's what we're at today. Started going and doing great. I'm so proud of the guy about a locker room. I mean, if I went out and I picked people off the street that I knew could wrestle, that knew can do that, I couldn't have picked the best guys I got in my locker room right now. And that's not blowing smoke. That's the truth. That is nothing but the truth. I've heard people talk about me on the Grizzly Cave that I should be booking for AEW, or I should be booking for WWE, or I should be booking for somebody. Don't get me wrong, that's a compliment. I love telling storylines. I love that. I love that part about the business. It drives me. But with all due respect, is no. And the reason why I say no is because if I was doing it for them, I wouldn't be able to do it for my company. And I have a whole lot more fun helping my company succeed, helping my company drive, helping all these guys that I've been training, that Ben's been training, and Derek's been helping out training a little bit. It's that's what drives me. So I appreciate the compliment. It means the world to me. Andrew, means the world to me when you say stuff like that. But no, I'm happy with where I'm doing it at. Could I probably do a little bit better in AEW? Yeah, probably. Could I probably do a little bit better in WWE? I mean, I think a blind person can do better in WWE, but that's just my opinion. But don't forget, I love WWE. Don't forget that. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it, like I said, without the guys that I got. The old sayings always was, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink.
Very true.
And that's the same thing. I can give somebody a storyline, like I can give Corey Daniels a storyline. This is what I want, but if he don't go out there and deliver it, it don't matter. So that's what I mean. That the guys that I got in my locker room, from the referees all the way to the people that watch the music, and it's my old lady Heather. Love that woman to death. I don't know what I would do without this woman. From my brother doing the ring announcement, to all the managers, to everybody, every one of us, from the session stands, from the guy that takes the money at the door, every one of us is Nall. Every one of us owns this company. That's one thing that I cannot say enough, is every one of us is a part of this company. And the only reason why this company is doing as well as it's doing is because of all of us. Not just one person's doing this. It takes the whole damn group.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a little base story of where I come from, how I got broke into this business. Kenny Cotton was the number one guy. I will owe him my career forever, and I won't never give up on that. Love you, Cotton, and keep moving forward, man.
You mentioned earlier about what they were going to charge you to train you, the $500. So on the episode that I had with Ben and Trevor, I had mentioned how I got a little bit of a start in the business back in '09. It was November of '09. I went to Old School Wrestling over in Hardin, Kentucky, which for those of you that don't know, that's right in between Benton and Murray, and it's one of them towns where if you blink, you'll miss it. And the day of training that I got with them, Bad Boy Phillips, that was his territory, and whenever I went in, he directed me to his wife. She had me fill out paperwork. She told me it'd be $500. I think I had 100 or 150 on me, and I wound up giving that as a down payment. So yeah, when you mentioned $500, yeah, that's what it was for me originally.
That was a lot of going right. I've trained a lot of people. I've trained a lot of people in my day. Uh, just to spitball a few of them that I trained by myself. Nobody, no help, nothing like that. I don't mention everybody else, but the first person I trained was my cousin Shane. Uh, Trained him, and I trained this group of guys. Showed up one day at a training facility and said, "Hey man, we want to learn how to train." All right, and it was James Beach and Keith Gordon. They turned out to be very good workers. I mean, their life took them a different direction, understandable. And then I trained a guy named Caleb Badu and Mike and a guy named Matt all at the same time.
Mm,
Had a lot of fun. Built a lot of good relationships with all three of them as friends, brothers, and every one of them turned out really, really good. Um, then I guess the favorites, if I had to pick a favorite that I trained, that a lot of people is going to think it's Alan, um, AC, but it's not. The I think the guy that I had the most fun of training was Lewis.
yeah.
Uh, Me and Lewis would sit outside. I had a ring set up in my backyard. Red started training him. Red just wasn't running that much. Red didn't, Lewis, he's not a young cat. Oh, he was wanting to get trained pretty fast, and, he didn't have that many years to do it. So I was like, I got a ring set up in my backyard. Come by my house. He was at my house every day. And we would go out there and we would train with my son. We call him Bubba, and he was over training with him, and we would train and sit and talk for hours. He would show up at my house at 4 or 5 o'clock, because that's what time he would get off work. And like some days he would show up, and I mean I'd just be dead tired, and I was like, man, I don't know if we're gonna do it today. And then we start talking. Well, hold on, man, let me go get my shorts on, and we go out there and then come back in the house to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh
And
wow.
that's one thing I can say about Heather. She is my rock. She is everything to me. I was taking all that time away from her, and she never griped. She never said nothing out of the way. She always had my back. And like I said, I can't say enough good stuff about Heather, that she always, no matter what, and still does today. You know, I got her back, she got mine. But you know, that's what I tell a lot of trainees. I was like, y'all don't understand. I said, I'm taking time away from my family to train y'all, and then 90% of y'all don't even care. And if y'all do care, y'all got a funny way of showing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's aggravating, you know. But Lewis, I guess, was my funnest. And he's done a lot in his career. He's really, the little career that he's had, he's done very good.
Mhm.
Love him like a brother. So yeah, that's the training tree that, because I don't think nobody should be able to train nobody unless you got 10+ years in this business.
Sure.
I've always said that. Um, it's kind of like truck driving. You know, if I only been driving a truck for 6 years, I don't need to be training you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, because I'm not saying I know everything, but I got over probably 2 million miles on my rear end
Right.
now driving. So I got a little bit of experience.
Yes, sir.
Uh, but yeah, I mean that's the thing about story kind of back up my training thing.
Um,
I didn't I didn't hesitate.
yeah. When you were training, and I always go back to this version of training because I'd mentioned it on whenever I had Coy Daniels on here. Crap, that's been over 2 months ago. Um,
Yeah.
I mentioned that I went on an AWA rabbit hole back in the summer of 23, and I heard about
Yep.
how Vern Gagne's training camp went and stuff. Which, of course, it was a lot colder up there in Minnesota. But what was the training like? Like whenever you broke into the business, because I know they ran like several hours a day and did. I think Ken Patera said they
I,
they did a bunch of body weight squats and worked in the ring that had chicken shit all over it and all sorts of stuff. Did a lot of running and
so what's crazy? The ring that I started out in training was an old USWA ring,
really.
and that thing was harder than a brick bat. I mean, it was hard. It was rough. Okay, and so we didn't. When I broke in, when I was training around Cotton and stuff, I done my own workouts. I done my own exercises. I done all that myself. Training really wasn't that,
Okay.
for me. Now when I went to Evansville, that's
Mm.
when the push-ups, the you name it, we done it.
Mhm.
And we ran. We were wrestling at this big auditorium, and I it was about a half a mile around the whole auditorium, and we ran 20 laps at every training session.
Oh shit.
And because see what it boiled down to is I kind of started not really from the bottom, you know what I mean, but I kind of did start back from the bottom,
Yeah.
and like started all over again. Um, I caught on a few things, and I'm not. That's just not kind of who I am. But I was taught a few things wrong, and I realized they was wrong once I got up there.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you know. But first starting out, no. I mean, be honest with you, I did not. Kenny Cotton could never get in the ring with us because he was an older guy. So, and he broke his leg in the business.
Mm.
A guy was performing he put the leg out there on the rope, and come down wasn't supposed to bend with it. Well, Cotton's leg was turned the other way, upside down, like laying on his stomach, and a guy jumped on his leg,
Oh
and
gosh.
it broke his leg. So,
Damn.
yeah, that after that, Cotton's wrestling days was over, and Cotton blames it on himself, and in a way, it was Cotton's fault, I guess, in a way, because Cotton, like Cotton said, he said, "Oh, I should have enough sense to turn my dang leg around," you know. And I was like, "Well, the guy you was working should have enough sense to fit it the right way,"
Right.
So, my opinion, I think it was both of their faults. But I don't guess it never had no heated argument about it or nothing like that, forgot each other went on. But long story short, Cotton couldn't get in the ring for this. Now, he would get in there every now and then, like show us how to lock up and show us like little basic stuff. But whoever was there is a guy named Bean. He that dude was unbelievable. I mean, he was a. I mean, I know a lot of y'all know who Ricochet is, and he was like a Ricochet.
Oh wow.
I mean, he was athletic. He was athletic before wrestling was athletic, and he was like, you know, unbelievable. And if you I believe that boy would have made it somewhere, but yeah, women come along and you know you like women more than you like wrestling. Let's put it that way.
I got you. Um, you mentioned the late Randall Conrad. Um, you've heard this, but I don't think the fans have heard this story. So I first heard of the name of Conrad back in early 2017. I used to work at, well, when I was still working at Webstron store, I had a second job working at Dollar General. I worked at the one on West Knoll Avenue, and the manager I had at the time, she was able to get some hours into where we could do like an overnight stock shift on a Saturday night. And this one fella, I do not remember his name, but he told me he worked for Conrad, and
Okay.
he told me he was an independent wrestler because we had gotten to talk about wrestling in some capacity, but I don't remember how it got brought up. And anyways, he started naming these names that he had gotten to either work with or walked him out to the ring and stuff. Heck, he said that you know Gold Dust's ex-wife Terry Runnels escorted him out to the ring along with Jacqueline. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And he started naming these other names he worked with, and but when I figured out he was full of shit was when
Yeah.
he said, yeah, me and Draws even had a match too. And I said, and that's when I turned and looked at him. I said, buddy, I said, when was this? He said, oh, just a couple of years ago. I said, buddy, I said, Draws has been paralyzed from the neck down since 1999, the late Darren Drozdoff, for those of you that don't know. But he's like, whoa. This happened before he got paralyzed. And this guy was a lot younger than me. And I mean, heck, I was 31, 32 at the time. I mean, come on. At that point, I knew he was full of shit. But before that happened, he had told me. He said, "Yeah." He said Conrad's wanting to sign Randy Orton and John Cena, and
Oh my lord.
I looked at him. I said, how often does this guy run shows? He said, "Oh, just during the summers." And I looked at him. I said, "Buddy," I said, "I don't think Randy Orton or John Cena is going to want to give up multi-million-dollar contracts to come make summer only appearances at a independent wrestling show and stuff and all that." That was the start of me. That was the start of the red flags for bullshit there. But then when he mentioned draws, I thought, "Oh hell no!" I'm
No,
like,
you did not go there.
yeah. When he said that, I about shit a brick. I mean, I was like, I'm thinking, who the hell does this guy think he is? I mean, you don't have to lie like that to impress me, hell, but damn.
Right, right.
But I'm sure now if Draws didn't have his accident, and this guy did work or said that he worked him, I might have believed him. I don't know, but yeah, I was like, damn. And this this guy wasn't around too much longer. I think within a month or so he was gone from DG. But I mean, he didn't look like he was a wrestler. I mean, I've seen. I mean, compared to the trainees that we have now. I mean, this guy couldn't have measured up to any one of them. But yeah, he
Right.
Yeah, after I realized his bullshit. Yeah, me and him didn't really talk much, but before all that, we got to talking about like who our ideal commentary team was and stuff. I mean, we had pretty good conversation until those two things that he mentioned, and I was like, nah, he's full of it. So,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that's the only time I've ever heard of the late Randall Conrad. Um, Well, then then other than what you just me and you have talked about, um, you mentioned Doug Gilbert. I don't think the fans know this, but I'll throw this out there. So his brother, the late great Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, he was
Yeah.
actually Sting and Warriors manager
Yeah.
over in Mid South when they were tag teaming as the Blade Runners. I don't think
Me
I.
and I, me and Doug Gilbert actually talked about that.
Oh, really?
We were sitting in the back, and we were, or might have been after we worked each other, whatever it was. But we were sitting in the back, just cutting it, and he said, "Well, who's your favorite? What got you into this? And I of course said Sting, and he was like, "Oh yeah, my brother used to manage him," and I was like, "You're exactly right." And I was like, "It's just amazing to me that now I'm working here."
Right.
And then it's amazing. Like a lot. I don't know if I said it in this last episode, but I want to say it again. Sting's first name was Flash, and
Mhm.
I didn't even know that. Didn't have a clue. Because back in the day, it wasn't no internet. It wasn't nothing. You couldn't find out stuff. And I did not know who Sting was. I didn't know who Flash was. When Steve Borden come along, I knew him as Sting.
Right.
Never knew him as Flash. And I might have seen him, on TV or whatever like that when I was really young, but I didn't know who he was. Didn't care nothing about him because, it wasn't Sting then. And I was trying to come up with a stage name, ring name, however you want to say it. And I wanted to use JC because they were my initials, but I'm like, I don't want to just be JC. And my ex-wife uh, said, well, won't you do Flash, JC Flash? And I was like, yeah, I like that. That got a nice ring to it. And I become JC Flash, and I've been JC Flash ever since. And then about 10 years in business, that's when I realized that Kane's first name was Flash. I'm like, what? How, it's amazing, how that is. And when I say that I'm a big Sting fan, and a lot of people think that I did take that, but I swear to you, I didn't have nothing to do with that. It was meant to be, and that's the best way I can say that.
Right. So, um, back in 2005, that's when Vince put out the Self Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that DVD was just basically an hour and a half worth of them shitting on Warrior,
Yes. Yeah.
but that's how I found out about the his moniker as Blade Runner Rock. So we'll fast forward to the spring of '06 when I was at Austin P State University, and some buddies of mine, they were wrestling fans as well. And one day, me and my buddy Shane, his name was Shane Webb, and uh, I haven't seen him in probably 7 or 8 years, but me and him were the first two that started MCW, which was Meacham Championship Wrestling. Meacham Apartments was actually one of the dormitories on campus at Austin P that I stayed at for a few semesters. And me and him started it, and he wanted to go by the name of Lockdown, and I came up with the name Andrew Rock. Use my first name, but then take the rock from Blade Runner Rock. Which was basically Ultimate Warrior ish, so to speak.
Right.
And so we were horsing around one semester. Then the summer came, and then we came back for the fall semester. Well, then I got the great idea to get face paint, and Yeah, yeah, face paint got all over the place, all over the floor, and then when you're sweating, it gets in your dang eyes and all that too. But
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
hey, I mean, if you actually get legit face paint, you know, and you got good stuff to clean your face off with, it comes off pretty easy and stuff. But yeah, yeah, we bought back when Toys R Us was still in business, we went and we bought some of those championship belts that they have in the toy section, you know, and those were our belts. We had a heavyweight champion, we had tag teams, and let's see, I think we got another one. Nah, uh, maybe we didn't, but we definitely had the big one, and then we had a tag team championship belts. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah we had a blast with it, and I wrote out the cues for the announcements, and I wrote when to cue the music, et cetera, and all this and that. And one of the guys that was a part of our little group, he was called the Potter Man, and his girlfriend was actually our ring announcer and stuff. And we had another guy. He actually recorded it with his video camera, and then we would sit back and watch the match and all that, you know. And it was just a
Oh
good
yeah.
time, you know. I mean, all we had were the twin bed mattresses, you know, to
Yep.
plus the tile floor that was covering concrete, you know, that always felt good. Um, I had one guy. His name was TLK. That stood for the Lady Killer. He was like 6'6", 6'7", and
Oh my.
he put me in a Dominator. Well, the knucklehead didn't land. He landed the top half of my body on the mattress, and then my knees wound up hitting the dang floor. I felt pops in both of them. I thought, oh shit, I'm not gonna be able to walk again
Oh
after
my
this.
God.
Yeah. Couldn't tell you how many holes in the drywall that got put in there. They they they
Oh man.
usually the ones that messed up the walls wound up going to Walmart and getting those drywall repair kits and stuff and all that. So yeah, that was definitely
So you trying to tell me you never made no profit?
buddy. No, I did. I sure as hell didn't make no profit then, and I still ain't made a profit now. So no, sir.
I tell you a story. Me and my buddy James, the one I told you that broke into the business, he pretty much lived with me. It's pretty much probably from the time he was way over 11 to, until he got out on his own. But we built a wrestling ring one time, and we built it out of wooden pallets and rope.
Hmm.
We had it was probably like a 10 by 10 maybe or something like that. We built the pallets, didn't have no nails, no hammers. We back in the days, uh,
Uh.
it held up, but it held up, you know. But it was, if you seen it, man, you would think it was a death trap,
Uh.
But
I'm
I
gonna
used
need.
to do that stuff all the time.
I'm gonna need you to retell that because I think you hit a dead spot, boss man. I'm gonna need you to retell all that
Okay.
again.
Okay, no, that's fine. Um, well, back, I don't want to say, me and James, my buddy, we built a wrestling ring at my mom's house when we was probably 14, 15 years old. I was. He's a couple years younger than I am, but we built it out of wooden pallets.
Okay.
And I do not. I mean, we built it up. It was like a 10 by 10. It looked like a death trap, but we would wrestle on that thing nonstop and have just a killer time. And I had to ask James, but I don't think that thing ever did fall down. I don't. And I mean, we didn't have nails and hammers. We had rope holding that stuff together.
Damn.
Like, I don't know. And then we had bungee, like bungees that you tie down like toilets and stuff. That was our rope, but we used to do stuff like that all the time. Had a blast doing it,
Mm-hmm.
But wrestling was in our blood, and that's all we wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But let me get into this other thing, if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
It's about my dad.
Yes, sir.
My dad, he's been gone now for 2 years. I miss him every day. But me and my dad, when I was growing up, we didn't have a real strong relationship. He was a truck driver like I am now, always on the road. The only time I've seen him is when he was whooping my butt. But he was, we just never had a tight relationship. And wrestling brought us together. And truck driving brought us the rest of the way together. But my dad come to me one day, and I was wrestling. He come to me, and he was like, "Do you need a manager?" And I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Well, I would love to manage you." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, heck yeah." It made my day when he wanted to do that. And he started managing me at KWA, and he managed me all the way up. He managed me for years. I can't even remember how many years he did manage me. It was a good 8, 9 years. He was beside me, and everybody always knew who my dad was because he would bring out a big car front. And my dad would shock the living crap out of you if if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, you did what he wanted you to do, if that makes sense. And the day that he got cancer and he beat throat cancer. He was in a mission for about 2 years. Of course, he had to quit, managing me. But my dad come to every show, no matter if he felt bad, no matter what. He was there cheering me on. The last show that he was at, I won the NAW heavyweight champion. And what got me through that match is I remember my dad just clear as day saying, "Get up, Josh. Look at me. I'm standing up. Stand up like me." And I looked over at him, and he was sick. He was sore. He had cancer was all over his body. And he stood up and cheered me on, and that was the greatest thing ever.
Yes, sir.
And ended up winning the title, and it was a great night. I got to give a big shout out to this guy that I truck with. His name's Eric. He's like my trucking best friend out here in the trucking industry. How me and you talk, me and him talk same way. He helped me through my dad's passing. He was there for me no matter what, and I just want to give a big shout out to him because he don't know how much he really did help me. I tell him that, and I really don't think he really knows how much he helped me through it. I love you, Eric. You're a great friend, great brother, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to give a big shout out to him.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I never did ask because I know your dad was in the business, but I never did ask you if he actually wrestled or if he managed or what. But you said he managed you for a time.
Yeah, he managed me. He never did wrestle. We got him involved a whole lot. always giving him stuff, and he nailed everything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the crowd absolutely loved him. The wrestlers in the back absolutely loved him. Um, he was just a down to earth guy. You know, he never went into business for himself. He was just whatever I had him do. You know, he done it. Sometimes he didn't do nothing, and I think he loved it as much as I did.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I love him to death.
Well, I forgot. I forgot to mention this. I did mention about the most recent show, but I didn't mention the importance of it. It was the CNS Invitational for the fans that are listening. The Cowan and Sutton Invitational, and I gotta say, folks, it you know just I'm just a peon with the company, but it was an absolute honor to be a part of that show. I mean, just the amount of respect that was shown, uh, JC, for your father and for Styles and Sid's father. I mean, it was breathtaking, and it was just an absolute honor to be a part of that. Um, I've seen a picture of the late Mr. Sutton, and I mean, when I looked at the picture, I was like, "Holy shit, that's Justin Styles." I honestly thought it was Styles for a second. I was like, "Dang, he's like he is a spitting image of his father."
Yeah, yeah,
And
100%. Yeah,
um,
I agree with that.
you mentioned Rowdy Red earlier, and hopefully Red's listening to this episode. Red, I miss you, buddy, and hope to see you soon at a show. But and I've told Red this, and I've told you this, and I think I may have told Styles this as well. But when I first saw Red, when I was sitting amongst the fans, for the first show, this was a month before I met you. When I saw him come out, I honestly thought he was Larry the Axe Hennig for a second, because when he stepped through that curtain, I was like, "That looks like Larry the Axe Hennig," and I mean, I was kind of taken aback
Yep.
for a second, and
Oh yeah.
I remember telling Red that, and Red told me he really appreciated the compliment. And no, Rowdy Red is he's a heck of an individual, and I'm a pretty decent.
I'm gonna shoot on him a little bit.
Go ahead.
Red, you better take that compliment and run with it because I won't ever give you that compliment. I love you, Red. Thank you for everything you've done for me. You know, you helped me out a whole lot. You know, you're like a brother to me. All kidding and jokes and all that. I'm still waiting for that phone call for you to come back. So give me a call, buddy.
I'm pretty sure he'd like to get his hands on that loudmouth announcer that y'all once had as well. You know,
Well, I mean, heck, I think everybody in my business wants to get his hands on them.
yeah. From what I understand, he's a loudmouth. He's a prick. Pretty much just an overall jackass. Um,
Yeah, pretty much. You're right about that. He is a jackass, you know. It was kind of funny this last show. You know, we had a training session right before that, and I got my hands on him. So you know, now he kind of knows why, what happened, what happened.
That'll well, so basically you taught him a lesson and showed that you're not a flash in the pan, right?
There you go. There you go. We're running with that. That sounds good.
Yeah, well,
Oh man.
hell, if you did that to him, I'd hate to think what Red would do if he got his hands on him. Because
I
hell,
know you're right.
because he gave, if I'm not mistaken, he used to say that Red was Santa Claus and all other sorts of stuff, and Red challenged him to a match, and loudmouth being the coward that he is and stuff, he never took him up on his challenge and all this other stuff. But man,
Well,
I also heard that loudmouth got squashed again, literally squashed at the last show.
yeah, this big 400-pound guy, I think he just ran right over him.
Yeah, I heard he got flattened like a
Yeah,
pancake. Well, you know what? You can't
and
come into this. Go ahead.
that's something that I want to put a shout out to. I need to. They deserve this. Nall's been going for 5 years back. Going, I think, on his 6th year now. But the match between Casanova and Nick Willis was a clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that match was unbelievable. Everybody and part of that match, from the sleazy referee to the big guy to the two wrestlers to everybody, man, uh, I'm so proud of y'all. I'm so proud of what y'all done that night. I mean, it was a clinic. It was, I don't rate matches. I ain't never have, never will. But if I would, I got to say that's a 4-star match. I mean, everybody was clicking on that match, and I'm so proud that y'all's working for me. So proud, and I just had to give a big shout out, Caden. You did. Casanova, you deserve it. You deserve that title. You've worked your tail off. Um, I'm glad, a little bit of your dream has come true. Nick Willis, me and you don't see eye to eye. Probably won't never see eye to eye, but I respect you, man. I respect you.
Yeah, those two. Um, I've seen matches those two have had in the past, and I mean, just the match quality, the performance, everything. I mean, it's incredible.
Yep.
And this past Saturday during that match, those fans really got into that match. You know,
Yeah.
when that
Yeah.
when that piece of shit referee, well, he wasn't even a referee; he's just a no good scumbag. Um,
Yeah, he
yeah,
just thinks he got power and just throws himself into anything.
yeah, yeah. Well, he got outsmarted, and
Yes, he did.
and I'll tell you, when he got squashed by the big man, I mean, that crowd really popped. I mean, they needed a device to measure the decibel level and stuff, but I mean, it was loud. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
sure was. Sure was. I mean, it was. I was sitting out back, and I kind of got messed up my knee a little bit, and I'm sitting out back, and I heard it, and I heard the crowd noise. I heard everything about it, and I was like, oh my god, you know, this is amazing, and that's what it was. It was amazing. I mean, I really don't have no other way of saying it,
yeah,
but it was just a great all around match. I mean, it really was, and I'm so proud of them kids. I'm so proud of you know what that that match. Uh, and you know, go out there just for the show, and I'm usually on the other side of it, and that.
are you there? I think you hit another one of them
I'm
bad
sorry.
spots. No, you're good, boss. If you don't mind, would you mind repeating what you just said?
Just saying that I'm just so proud of them. I'm usually on the other side of this, but they stole the show.
Mm,
That match stole the whole show, and Like I said, I'm usually on the other side of that. I'm usually the one still in the show. But they started the show, and I'll be honest with you, I am so happy, so tickled to death for it. You know, I don't got a lot more time left. Let me just cut down to the chase. My time is numbered inside that ring, and you know, it makes me feel really good when I got people around me like that, that I know that this business is going to keep going stronger and stronger because of guys like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
man.
know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Um, Getting back to some of those that you worked with, you mentioned Gypsy Joe, and I know me and you have talked about it, and I'll have you elaborate. But I've told you this, that the first time I ever heard of Gypsy Joe was it was on a YouTube video, and it was there was a I can't remember the exact title of the video, but it was basically about when wrestling got about how well, let me backtrack here. Basically, it was a match with Gypsy Joe and the late New Jack, and
Mm.
basically, New Jack took a bait like whacked him with a baseball bat and did all other sorts of stuff, and he was like you mentioned earlier, an elderly man at the time. And my first thought was, what the hell is Jack doing? I'm thinking to myself, like those other people, that's an old man. He's gonna probably kill him.
Yeah.
But then when me and you started having our lengthy conversations, I had asked you when you worked with Gypsy Joe, was this before or after that happened? And you told me that was after. I thought, holy shit, he still kept going.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
uh, would you care to elaborate? Would you care to elaborate on on Gypsy Joe?
No, no. I mean, I elaborate on him. Love him to death. He's a great dude. His memory needs to go on forever, in my opinion, because at one time he was the oldest living wrestler. And Gypsy Joe was tough. Gypsy Joe was mean. You know, I ain't never liked New Jack. I never liked New Jack before that, but me and Gypsy, I learned about New Jack through Gypsy. I mean, I known who New Jack was because of ECW and stuff like that, but I didn't like, I didn't, know of him, didn't know if, I mean, you see different characters all the time on TV, but some's better than some's worse than some. What you see on TV is not what you always get in real life. And um, I talked to Gypsy Joe about that, and I just asked him point blank. I think somebody else actually brought it up. You know what I mean? And Gypsy really didn't talk a lot about it. You know, um, but what Gypsy Joe told me is they was there, and they went out there, and Gypsy is like I told you before that he's hard to understand, hard to you know. His best saying is "hit me harder, motherfucker." I mean that was just and I guess New Jack took that as oh well, okay, and they started going at it. And he said, next thing I know, he's got a baseball bat and hit me upside the head with it, and he said he tried to kill me. He said, but it's one thing about me, and he always called me by my first name, Josh. And he said, it's one thing about me, Josh. I said, what's that? He said, hit me harder, you motherfucker. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you know, he thinks he's a tough guy. He thinks he's all of that. He thinks he's a gangster. He thinks he's, tougher than life. He said, until the motherfucker met me. And that was his output of it. He didn't talk a lot about it. And from that moment on, I hated him.
Mm,
I hated New Jack. I'm like, this guy is, almost 80 years old. I think at that time he was like 70 something, you know. But you know, almost 80-year-old man, and you got to use a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell? You know, and I've heard a lot of stories about New Jack from ECW guys, from Bully Ray to just different people. You know, I listened to this show called Busted Open, and Bully Ray has talked about it, and about New Jack and stuff like that. And a lot of people said that he was a down to earth guy,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people has told me that he's not. You know, you know, uh, and so I never did meet New Jack, so I don't want to mention of what. All I know is what he done to an almost an 80-year-old man was uncalled for.
Mm-hmm.
You
Um,
know,
eh,
and Gypsy Joe, when we was doing the chopping stuff, I mean, he was just, I mean, I thought I was gonna kill him. You know, and I mean, a chop. Nobody don't know what a chop is. Is where you just draw back and you smack the living crap out of right there in the chest,
mm-hmm.
and you give everything you got. And if you don't think them hurt, show up on the 14th in Nebo and let me chop you, and then you tell me, and you times my chop by two,
Mm-hmm.
three. That's what Gypsy's was. You
Dang.
know, Gypsy's a real old man, so his hand was like leather. So somebody picking up a belt and just beating you to death with that belt, and that's pretty much what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what hmm, that's what we dealt with back in the day.
Um, what?
Kids today won't never understand.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Or if they want to know what a chop feels like, come to the training sessions. They don't feel great.
No, no,
The
they don't.
the not the one that what y'all had before the show, but the one before that. I was there, and one of the trainees, I'll shout his name out, Henry. Um, I had my shirt off. I think I was hell, I even forgot why I even took the shirt off, but Henry laid into
Because you're
me.
crazy.
Yeah, I was, yeah, definitely crazy. 39 years old and getting into the business and stuff, yeah, I definitely got to be crazy now. But yeah, Henry laid into me with just one chop, and I mean, it was loud and it stung. I mean, my face, I was wincing in pain, as they would say, and you could see it didn't take but maybe like a split second, and you could see that handprint forming on my chest. Dang. And I've got a broad chest, I've got broad chest and broad shoulders, but yeah, that stung. Man,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Um, I think that felt worse than taking the belt, having the belt taken to me when back, which I only had maybe one or two of them back when I was a kid. But yeah, that chop felt worse than the belt getting thrashed on me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a. That's what I tell people all the time that I hate the word people saying that wrestling's fake. I hate it by passion. Uh, Wrestling, is it staged? Yes. Is it fake? Show up on the 14th and we'll find out. Oh, yeah. No.
I
When's the
know
next show?
I'm not as seasoned as all of y'all and stuff. I'm just a pissant trainee, but there's nothing fake about putting your body on the line and doing the stuff that you all have done for so many years, or the stuff that us trainees are doing. There's nothing fake about it. And yeah, I'll look like JC said. If you want to say it's fake, we'll come to the next show on the 14th, or show up at the training sessions, and you'll be shown it's not. Um,
Yeah.
Did did where did Gypsy Joe wrestle at before he did more independent stuff? I mean, I'm assuming he was more. I mean, he was obviously around in the territories. Did he ever say where he worked at before he started doing independents?
I don't think he really told me. I think he worked for USWA a little bit. I think he worked for Memphis a little bit because Jerry Lawler. Um, I remember him talking about him one time that he was just the toughest SOB that he has ever been in the ring with or ever seen in the ring. So I think he worked for up in the Memphis territory a lot. I think he worked for down there in Texas a little bit, um, for the Von Erichs a little bit, and he worked a lot across seas. He done a lot of tours in Japan, a
Oh,
lot.
okay,
Uh, I think his main sources was over there in Japan,
okay,
but don't hold that to me.
okay. Well, based on what you've said about him, he definitely sounds like he would have been a better fit for Japan because I mean that they're more known for being a lot more. Um, well, I don't want to say. I guess we'll say. Mm, let's just say it's more physically demanding. Is I guess is how I'll say that. Without peeling the curtain back too much, if that's okay with you. But
No,
yeah, it's yeah, that kind of sounds like he would have been a better fit for those areas. And from what I understand, you could actually make a lot of money back in those days if you worked for Baba or Inoki. Um, I can't remember who said it, but well, actually, take that back. There's been several that have said that they may had better paydays working in Japan than they did working over here in the states.
no, yeah.
And then you mentioned Tracy Smothers. Um, let's see, there was a girl that I knew. She's up in Indiana now, but she wrestled under the name Sadie Vanderkamp. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the shows she went to, he was usually over there at that promotion and stuff. So so was Tracy, which I know Tracy's no longer with us, but what was he pretty much just centered more in Indiana? I guess over the last 20 years or
Yeah.
so.
Over the last few years, yeah, over the last 20 years, he was. I mean, he done he done ECW. He done ECW, that FBI stuff a little while.
Hmm.
And then of course he done. Oh,
He
he
was in
worked in WCW. He had a
right,
pretty good career in WCW.
right.
I think he worked for Memphis a little bit. Um, I think he worked for Channel 7, like when he was really early. I know he worked not Channel 7, man, sorry. He might have worked, I don't know for sure about that one. I don't want to say, but I know he worked for Smoky Mountain Wrestling a lot.
Right.
He was a big part of them, and Tracy has helped so many people. He was the kind of guy to, I want to say this. He put everybody in front of his own self.
Yeah.
He was always there to help, always there to. You could learn so much from Tracy. I remember one time when I very first went up there, I was walking Tracy. It was me and this guy named Pothead John. We walked against Tracy Smothers and I want to say maybe Johnny. And for the love of God, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but he called something, and I wish to God I could remember what he called, but I cannot remember what he called in the match, and I didn't know what he was talking about.
Oh, really?
And yes, and he was like, "What the heck? What the hell? You need to get trained again." Said something kind of like that, and took over, and I went to him, and um, a few shows later, and I was like, "What did you call in that ring? I want to know what I need to fix." He was like, "Well, I don't know. I can't remember now." I'm like, "Well, son of a gun," you know. But Tracy was always a great a great learning tree. This guy, you know who Rob Conway is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Rob Conway was always a good, like, teacher, I guess I want to
Hmm.
say. He kind of kept to himself when he very first started coming in, and he was still on that big high because he just got released from WWE, and um, all that. But and then like Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas, the naturals from TNA, you know, great. Chris Michaels, a great athlete, great performer. Um, and all of them are still going. I don't know about Andy. I don't know if Andy's still doing it. Last time I heard about Andy, he was a realtor.
Mm.
And but I mean, it was some fun times back in the Indiana days. It really was. We had a lot of fun back in them days.
Yeah.
But I'm having a whole lot more fun doing what I'm doing now, and that's the truth.
Yes, sir. Was There was a story you told me um, that involved Mr. Smothers, and basically he kind of pulled one on you in the back. I think didn't he give you some advice on to do something, and then when you did it, you paid for it in a match. Uh,
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah. He said go out there, and I can't remember exactly what he told me to do, but I went out there and I done it, and oh my God, yeah, I paid for that very, very badly. And it was just a rig, a rig. They did it all the time back there, and it was. I guess it was my turn to get. I don't know, but you know, Tracy was. He was a character. Tracy would be missed forever. But at that time, I could have killed him. And that, I mean, and no playing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill him. But yeah, but that, I mean, that's the enjoyment of it. That's be honest with you. I mean, um, if you can go out there and have that kind of relationship with people you work with, it's going to be a fun night.
yes, sir.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the most important thing with matches, psychology. And
Yeah.
as soon as you said that, and you already know who I'm going to mention, but for the wrestling fans, um, my personal opinion, I think Jake Roberts was one of the best in ring psychologists of all time. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but I definitely agree, JC, with what you said. You know psychology is very, very important because that's what I was told back in Jamie Phillips's territory. Um, I'm sorry, Bad Boy Phillips, my bad. And the two guys, well, actually, there were three guys he had working with me. I remember two of them. One guy's name was Chops, which I don't know if he's still wrestling, but he was up in Indiana a lot. And then another guy was named Chick Canyon, and and I forgot the other guy's name. I think Smalls was his last name, but I do not remember his first name. But they all three said the same thing. They said you're Matt. You got to tell a story, you know, and it all goes back to psychology. So,
Yes, yes, sir. And that, I mean, during my training session, that's what I work on more than anything is psychology. It's only a certain people that got all three.
right.
You know, they can perform really good in the ring. They can talk on the mic, and it's, I guess it's your, how I want to say this, the guy that can work in the ring, the guy that can talk, and the guy that can carry themselves. And when I say carry themselves, let me break that down so more people understand what I mean. I mean carry yourself, your gimmick. Carry yourself to the ring. Carry yourself out of the ring. Carry yourself through the match. You got to be able to do all three of them to make it in this business. If you can talk and can't do nothing else, then you're just going to be a commentator or you're going to be a manager. If you can just wrestle and nothing else, you're going to be a jobber.
Mm-hmm.
If you got the entertainment, if you got the other package, what I just mentioned, then you're going to be an entertainer. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get all three of them and you make yourself believe and groom yourself and teach yourself and stand up in front of that mirror for hours cutting promos, stand up in front of that mirror and tell yourself that you're good enough. Get out there, put out the work, do the work, all this. Ain't nothing given to you in this business. Nothing. You got to earn everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you right now, and this is the truth. If you just say, let's take Casanova. And let's take the new guy that just started Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take them two. And Casanova's hot right now, right?
Right.
You got to agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If he starts to slack off and Mars steps up his game, guess what happens?
Mars gets that spot.
Yes. So the problem ain't about getting heat or getting beloved. It's about keeping it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always somebody willing to take it from you.
Right.
So that's a big thing that I tell, a lot of people, that you got to realize that ain't not going to be given to you. Get over that. You got to earn everything you get, and you got to earn to keep it.
Right.
And what so many people mess up at is they think that, oh my God, look where I'm at. They can't touch me. This is where I'm going to be at forever. Yeah, okay. Keep down yourself at. That's all I can tell you. Because in about 6 months, you're going to be forgotten.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sad, but true.
Yes, sir. Um, and
I see it too much. Too often, I guess the best way to say it.
yeah, you had mentioned about how you would kind of duck, you duck your head and keep quiet and you listen. I remember there was a training session a few months back that you were there, and I want to say it was either February. It was either February or March. No, I think it was in February. And you had all of us trainees around, and I won't mention I won't mention the person's name, but you basically had used him as an example that basically be quiet and listen, and I mean, heck, I mean, you can't come in to this business and think you know it all and stuff. You got to keep quiet and listen to the veterans, listen to your coaches, right?
100%. 100%. And, I know exactly who you're talking about. Uh, and, I mean, you was there that day.
Yep.
And, this is the truth. What I'm about to say is it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It after what happened. I'm not going to mention what happened. If you want to know, show up to training.
Right.
And but when I done it to him for his own benefit, not for my benefit, not for the company's benefit, for his own benefit. Because, uh, like I said before, you know, I'll be honest with everybody. I love my family. I love my old lady. I'd rather be with my old lady than I would be here with y'all group of guys. I
Hmm.
love y'all, but not that way,
Sure.
you know. And uh, so I'm taking time out of my family's life to train people, and then y'all don't want to listen to me or whatever like that. Well, what's the point of me doing it then?
Hmm.
And that was the that was the point, and that was a point I wanted to get across to him. And I think I got that point across to him.
Yeah.
Did I did I want to do it that way? No, did not. But sometimes in life you do stuff that you don't want to do.
Right.
I don't know how to I don't know how else to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Those of you that are listening right now, if you're wanting to get into the business, what this man has said, you know, come in, do as you're told, and that's about it. I mean, it's okay to ask some questions, but
Oh yeah, yeah. I encourage you to ask questions. I encourage you to want to get better. I encourage you um, to do all that for sure, 100%. Because that you won't get no better. But it'll be a time and place for you to do that.
right.
It what I'm meaning when I went to them locker rooms. I went to a lot of locker rooms. I've been in so many locker rooms I can't even count how many locker rooms I've been into. And I went in. I introduced myself to everybody there. Shook everybody's hand, told them who I was, and I went and found me a chair and I sat down. And I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in locker rooms. A lot. Nothing like. Now, let me clarify this because I don't want y'all to think, I've seen some inappropriate stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I've seen wrestlers get into it. I've seen uh, probably every type of drug you can think of. I've seen um, like just stuff that you wouldn't think you would see. I guess the best way to say it. But I'd never seen it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because, like I said before, you keep your eyes closed, your mouth shut, and your ears open,
Right.
and you just listen. You listen. Just say like, let me give you an example. Kind of like Tracy Smothers and just say Doug Gilbert, whatever, is working out a match. I'm going to listen to that match, and I'm going to hear everything they do in that match, that what they're calling. Okay, and then I watch the match, and then I watch how Tracy sold that, or how Tracy delivered that, or how Doug sold that, or how Doug delivered that. That's why I said, you keep your eyes closed, back or in the back, keep your ears open.
Hmm.
And then when it's time, you open your eyes and you don't never open your mouth. And like I said, it'll be a point in time in your career where you can start asking questions.
Mhm.
What I hate the most is you start training somebody and all they want to do is talk about their gimmick. All they want to do is talk about this is what I'm going to do and this is going to be my finisher. And I'm like, dude, won't you get trained first? Shut up.
Mhm.
I cannot stand people coming to me saying stuff like that. You ain't even trained yet and you're talking crap. Now, if I'm picking you in a role or if I'm doing something with you, then yeah, tell me your ideals. I encourage you to tell me your ideals. But until I do that, or until another, whoever's training you, I don't care if it's my company, I don't care if it's another company, don't do that. Show up, do the work, and move on. When it's time for you, that you can thank yourself, and I want you to thank yourself. Like, hey man, when my time gets here, I'm gonna go to him, and I'm gonna say this, and I think this will work for me. I think that'll work for me. All this stuff. I encourage that. Because who am I to tell you what I want from you
Mhm.
by like your gimmick, by your name, by all that? I give y'all creative control over all that.
Mhm.
Now, if it needs to be treated, or if it needs to be, got this one guy that I don't know. I don't want to mention his name. He's turning out to be a good worker, but this gimmick he got going on right now that, oh my lord, I don't know. That's the best way for me to say it, to be nice.
Yes, sir.
But like him, I go to him probably this next training session or next show, and I'm going to sit him down and talk to him about all of it
Mhm.
and see what I can do, because I change people to better people. I don't change people because I don't like your ideals, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. But the bottom line of this is I'm paying you to come in and work for me. Okay. It's kind of like you going to your shoot job, and your job was to pump gas for customers. And customers show up and you refuse to pump gas. Well, what are you going to get? You're going to get fired, right?
Mhm.
Okay. There you go. Take it as you want to.
Yes, sir.
You know, um, wrestling, you don't make a lot of money. Been doing it for 20 some years, and I'm still driving a truck. So it's not money in it, but the way I look at it is this: everybody's got a hobby.
Mhm.
Uh, if you go play golf as your hobby, you spend money.
Right.
If you go bowl, you spend money. If you go fishing, hunting, whatever you do as a hobby, you pay for it.
Mhm.
You know? And your reward on all this stuff to try to get a hole in one, or try to get a bowl of 300, or try to catch the biggest fish, or kill the biggest deer, or kill the most squirrels, or whatever it is. In wrestling, the most satisfying thing is it ain't belts, it ain't titles. If you want to mention them, it's not that. It's when you can go out there and you can hear that crowd royal by booing you or cheering you, whichever gimmick you're playing at the time, heel baby. You go out there and you knock it out of the park. You go out there and you have a clinic match. You go out there and the crowd can they want somebody to come in there and just knock your teeth out of your mouth, or they want you to win it all. That's the adrenaline rush. In my opinion, that's the adrenaline rush that what drives me in this business. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't get that. Totally understand that. That's just
Right.
my view of it. That's the way that I look at it. That's the way I train my guys. Um, that's the way that, I try to, all the knowledge that I've learned over the years, and I'm still learning today. Do not get me wrong. Do I think I'm a perfect wrestler? No, I am not a perfect wrestler. I mess up still, been doing it for 20 some years and still messing up. Am I a pretty good wrestler? Yeah, I could say that. Everybody tells me that, anyways. So I think I'm a pretty good wrestler, but everybody's human. It's not nobody out here is perfect. Only body's perfect, and he's up there.
Right.
And you will never get me to say nothing different.
Yeah.
You know, was my dad perfect? Nope. Is my mom perfect? Nope. Did I have two great parents? Yes.
Yep.
But was they perfect? No. Because if they was, probably would have killed me a long time ago. Because I definitely ain't. So,
Wow.
but all kidding aside, is you know, I I'm not going to get in details on this, and we will when I figure it out. I want to come back on the Grizzly, cave when I when Andrew called me earlier and want to know if we want to do this broadcast. And of course, I'm always down to do broadcasts. I love it. I think it's the greatest thing ever. To be honest with you, um, but you know, it's I I I might be getting some bad news. Uh, I don't want to leave y'all kind of hanging, but I don't want to give all kinds of details out because I don't know nothing yet. I've not even been to the doctor yet, and I don't know nothing. But I guess what I'm trying to get at, y'all, is everybody's listening. If I can just have y'all say a prayer for me, it'll mean the world to me. Um, I really appreciate it. It'll mean, like I said, mean the world to me and my family. Uh, and Andrew won't never know how much he means to me. I couldn't tell him enough. Uh, me and him has got a me and him is more alike than we ever dreamed we would be about. And when I say that he's like a brother to me, I mean it. It ain't just saying it. Uh, we've got a lot more from our exes to everything. We we we're pretty much the same people, but um, trying to get this out without getting upset. But um, the guys in my locker room, like I said before, I just can't thank them enough. I can't thank Andrew enough. I can't thank any of everybody, from the women to the men, everybody. It just means the word to me, and what we have done and what we're going to keep doing. So I will give y'all this. It ain't nothing you know, like life threatening or nothing like that. But when I find out exactly, you know, I get a hold of Andrew and we get back on here and I give y'all a full update and tell y'all everything that I'm meaning by it. But like I said, all I can do right now is just ask y'all to pray for me. I love each and every one of y'all.
Well, I will definitely keep you in my thoughts and my prayers, and I appreciate the words that you just said there. Pertaining to me, and I'm sure the rest of the crew feel the same way, and you'll never know how much you mean to me, and just yeah, and you're absolutely right, folks. When JC says we're a lot alike, he ain't lying. Just out of these conversations I've had with him over the course, let's see, me and him actually started talking on the phone about 4 months after I got involved with the promotion, and that's when the first conversation was like 2.5, 3 hours, and then it eventually progressed up to 5 to 6 hours, at least once a week. So we had a lot to talk
Yep.
about. But well, JC, if you don't mind, do you want to talk about how me and you first met?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I'm good with that. I mean, you start it and I add to it. I mean, or I can start it and you can add to it whichever way you want to do it. I mean, it don't. Um, I mean, I'm good with it if you're good with it.
I'm good with it too. I'll start it off. Basically, folks, I had heard of JC Flash through uh, uh, a previous shoot job that I had, and I just heard of him. I heard of him through Justin Style. Me and him worked the same shoot job together, and for let's see, Style would bring posters to our job, and it would actually be posted by the time clocks and stuff. And I remember seeing a picture of JC Flash. I just kind of got a glimpse of him, and it was advertising. I believe it was a strap match with Coy Daniels, and
Yep.
I think that was the April 2024 show. I was going to come to that, but my oldest daughter, Brianna, was, Danny, that's just not my thing. I was like, oh, all right. So then we get to to when the May show comes around. Well, Brianna, do you want to go? Danny, that's just not my thing. I don't really want to go. All right. Well, then finally the June show rolled around, and I didn't even bother asking. I said, Brianna, we're going to Nebo. We're going to the show, and this show was packed. And the opening show, I hear the music come out, and I already see the all the fans, kids and adults coming up to the rope at the time, and here comes this fella out, and just to a big ovation, and I had to put two and two together. I was like, okay, this is JC Flash, and during when he was on the microphone talking, Coy Daniels came out. Then all of a sudden, I see this older lady getting up, walking around with this paddle, and she starts hollering at Coy Daniels. And I said, "Oh, that's Mama Flash. Okay, I've heard of her."
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and then of course I go to the show, and the I'm enjoying it like crazy. And then that was when AC Flash made his return as a special guest ref, and
Hmm.
because the match stipulation was that if you defeated Coy Daniels, then you would get a future title shot, and then you could have any referee you wanted. Well, AC Flash made his return, and of
Yep.
course, unfortunately, that didn't work. Things went a little. Things went in the wrong direction, and AC Flash wound up turning his back on you, and henceforth later on became known as Alexander Cage. And
Punk.
I mean, I honestly thought y'all were gonna have to call the Riot Squad for a second, and I was right there when Coy was walking to the back, in which we talked about this on the episode that I had with him. That I was sitting next to an old buddy of mine, and I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he was shooting his mouth off at Coy, and I kept telling him, I said, Jeremy, you need to sit down. And then Kevin, one of the security guards, even told him, he said, sit down, sir, sit down, and all that. And I don't know what he said, but yeah, it about I honestly thought the
it
riot
got it got a little crazy for sure.
it did. And then the main event, we saw S&M take on the Jolly Rogers for the gold, and that right after the match was over, Brianna started screaming "losers" at the Jolly Rogers, and that was the first sign of life she had really shown. And well, anyways, fast forward to week or so later, Justin Stiles had approached me and asked if I'd be. I don't want to peel back too much, I guess, but he had
Go
asked if I was
go
interested in
ahead.
getting involved. Do what? Oh, go ahead. Well, he had approached
Yeah,
me
go.
about getting involved with the promotion, and I said, well, I said, I mean, I can't guarantee I could be at every show because at the time, the I was still with my second wife, and if it was a week, when she was actually going to be home, I was going to have to be at home with her, and he said he understood that, and what he had proposed to me, I've never done before, but he seemed to
Right.
think that I might have been a good fit for it. Well, I said, well, I mean, we can
You
give it
was.
we well, it turned out I was, but I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. But I told him, I said, well, I want to meet the boys and and get to know them and know what the yes and nos of what I can and can't do or whatever. Because I don't want to start off on the wrong foot. Well, um, first person. Well, I won't mention who I met first, but like I said, I don't want to peel the curtain back too much. But I eventually met you,
Yeah.
and I'm standing there. I'm nervous because I'm meeting the basic. Well, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you'll get the meaning. I'm basically meeting the Hulk Hogan of the promotion. I'm meeting the top baby face of the company. And folks,
I
for the
don't work for me,
record,
brother.
JC Flash is he does not act like Hulk Hogan by any means. He's very humble, very respectful, and he does what's best for the business. But we had a chance to meet and got to talk and all that. And I remember you got a chance to get your revenge on on Mr. Cage, and I remember
Mm.
I was still sitting out with the fans, and I remember getting up to shake your hand. I'm actually wearing a T-shirt of one of the heels at the time. Um, yeah. But anyways, I stand up, shake your hand, and I remember telling you, great match, sir. And then you had embraced me and said, I'm looking forward to working with you, brother. And I said, likewise, sir. I said, great match, and that was pretty much how we met. And then, if you want to, you can go ahead and chime in with the with what when we first met, and you can kind of tell the audience what you were thinking at the time.
Are you sure you want me to say that?
Go right ahead.
No, I'll be honest with you. The first time he come up to me and he introduced himself to me and stuff, and the first thought I thought in my head, I was like, he's a mark. And if if people don't know what that means, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. A mark is somebody that uh, thinks that they know the business, um, thinks that they're everything, thinks that you know that they don't need training, or they already know it because they've watched so much on TV. Um, they call out a lot of stuff. They run shows. I guess that's the best way to say it. I don't know
Hmm.
how the best way to say it, but that's what it boils down to. And when I seen him, he had that shirt on, um, and I was like, man, that dude's a mark. I'm like, no, I ain't dealing with this dude. And I didn't. The job that we gave him, Derek gave it to him. Derek told me about it, and I was like, this is gonna be a train wreck. Um, Never thought that I would like it. Uh, and I told this before. My old lady is the one that plays the music. Well, I just never got. I got so much stuff going on during show days. I just didn't pay attention to it. I didn't because I didn't care about it. I guess being honest with y'all, I just didn't. And my old lady, she was like, "Did you hear what he was doing? And what how he was doing it and stuff like that?" And I'm like, "No, I, no, I don't care." You're like, "You need to give him a, you need to, listen. You need to give us, you need to give him a chance." And I was like, "No, no, no." And she stayed after me. She did. She stayed after me, and she kept on and kept on. And I'm like, God dang it, I will this show. So I sat back, and what was my saying before? Keep your mouth shut, your eyes closed, and your ears open. I can't preach that enough. And that's what I done. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I can probably do something with this dude, And not to pull the curtain back too much, but, you know, um, that was I mean, just in that one show, I was like, I can do something with this dude. I can, yeah, hell yeah. And um, so I called Derek. I'm like, hey, I can do something with that guy. I can, I can really do something with him. Like, I got an ideal, and I believe we can knock it out of the park. And what I let you time in about. I think you said that he come to you or something.
Um, he so I when I first started with my job with you all, I mean, I wasn't licensed, which with what I was doing didn't require,
Right,
all of
right.
that.
Because you wouldn't. Yep.
And so I'd actually went in October right before y'all's October show to see about getting licensed, and I didn't know at the time that you had to go to an actual physician, an actual well, you couldn't just go to like an urgent care and get a physical done.
Special one and do it. Yep.
Right, right. You had to get like a 4 or 5 page form filled out and stuff, from an actual DO or MD or something. You couldn't just get any practitioner. So it was
Yes, sir.
it was after y'all's November show, which I wasn't able to make it because I hadn't seen my two youngest ones in quite a while, and I wanted to. And that Saturday was about the only day that my ex could meet up and stuff. In which me and you talked about that train wreck of a meeting that we had and all that. Then I was like, dang, I should have just went to the show instead. But I wanted to see my babies. But uh,
Yeah, I
I I think it was the
understand that.
following week or week after I eventually got licensed, and I've still got the email saved on my phone, and
Mm.
I wound up sending it to Derek. Well, it was about a month later, and um, let's see, right before the Super Show. And when I say folks, right before the Super Show, we're talking like 3 or 4 days before the Super Show, and I uh, I receive a message or a phone call asking if I'd be interested in doing something with JC, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, sure. And of course, that's when me and JC had our very first long, lengthy phone conversation, and he told me what he had in mind, for the Super Show. I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'd be all up for it, absolutely. And lo and behold, it turned into something even bigger. without
And
without
let me
pull.
time
Go ahead.
let me time in just for a second.
Sure.
When I was sitting in the back and I was, like I said, listening, it was something about Andrew that hit me different. It it in a good way now. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And as I've been thinking about stuff, I've been thinking about storytelling. I was thinking about what am I going to do, 'cause if anybody knows me, um, I want to be 5 steps ahead. I've always been that way. Um, I know what I want to get to. Let's get there. But I never had the right guy to do it. And then when I heard him, when I seen him, I was like, oh, I think I got some here. And then the day that he called me and we talked on the phone for 2.5 hours, and everything, you can call it a job interview, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but I gained that day, I gained a real good friend, and I gained a brother. And the conversation we kept going back and forth with each other. We kept figuring out what we needed to do, how we needed to do it, what would be the best way to do it. And then the Super Show comes. And oh my God, did it deliver? Did it deliver? Couldn't we couldn't ask to win any better. Be dead honest with you. And when he walked backer to the back, and I was back there, it was like, yeah, we got this, and still going strong today.
Mm-hmm.
Have we had some hiccups? Yeah, but that's part of the business. It ain't a movie.
Right.
It's a wrestling show. It's entertaining. We don't get 15 takes. We get one take, and that one take's got to knock it out of the park.
Yep.
And what I was talking earlier about Casanova and Nick Willis knocking it out of the park, that night we knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud of everybody that was involved with that, because it couldn't have went the way it went without everybody.
Right.
Did I get screwed? Oh yeah, I got screwed. But you know, that's part of the business.
Oh yeah.
I had to put that in there.
Yeah. I also remember seeing that piece of shit. What's his name? Slugger Jackson. I saw. I remember seeing him cheap shot you a little bit with
Yeah,
DD
the
Jinx.
worthlessest motherfucker I've ever known in my life.
That's what I've been hearing. I hear he likes to run his mouth off, but but he's more, but he's a big cheap shot artist. If I'm
He-
not mistaken, did he cheap shotted Casanova in that title match as well? But he got a
what's crazy about this guy is he almost cost me the world title, and then his little buddy Nick Willis did cost me my world title, and then I won the Bluegrass Championship, and then Slugger Jackson, the piece of crap, cost me that belt. I just cannot wait to one of these days, y'all. Soon, I'm going to be able to get my hands on him in that squared circle in front of a sold out crowd. And boy, it's going to be fun when I get my hands on him.
I've
And that is the truth.
I've offered to have Slugger Jackson on here, but he wants the money that he's asking for to appear on here. Well, first off, heck, I haven't even made any money myself off this podcast, but hell, he's wanting these
Well,
high. Go ahead.
you remember what I was talking about, Marks?
Yes, sir.
Fuck Slugger Jackson. That's all he is. That's all he
Yeah, yeah.
is a
That's
damn mark.
yeah. Yeah. The only conversation we've ever had was I'd asked him to come onto this podcast, but he wants X number of dollars, and I said no, no, I'm good. No, And of course, he ran his mouth off some more and stuff. I just pretty much just turned and walked away. And at that point, but he didn't try to come after me physically because he's a coward and a cheap shot artist, and
Yes.
you know,
How about this? When I get my hands on him, I'll pop him a good one just for you. How
well,
about that?
I appreciate that. I appreciate
If
that.
he
It's a-
thinks if he thinks he's a bigger star than everybody you've had on this broadcast, he needs to be popped in the mouth.
Yeah, well, maybe he needs to get popped in the face with his baseball bat again. So uh,
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Um,
I agree with that 100%.
beware what you wish for, right?
Yeah. That day, he bought a baseball bat to a chair fight and didn't work too good out for him that night.
No, no, no. It definitely did not work out for him. Yeah, he'll probably think twice than to bring a bat to a chair fight. So you know,
it's like about it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Don't
it,
work out too good for you.
exactly, exactly. Oh
Oh
wait,
man,
yeah, but
this has been awesome.
yes, sir, it has. Um, we still got a little bit of time actually. If there was which me and you've talked about this, off the podcast, but if you were wrestling back in the territory days, what territory would you have liked to have been a part of? You broke up on me. What was that?
In NWA,
NWA. Okay.
NWA would have been the. I've always been, like a Smoky Mountain Wrestling dude or an NWA guy or even a Memphis guy. I would even like the Von Erich territory, even the what is that company called that Stewart used to run, Bret Hart's dad,
Oh,
Canadian Stampede or whatever.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, okay, I would love to win up there. That's the thing about WWE. You know, WWE. You went to work for WWE. That's who you worked for. That's you couldn't work for nobody else. You couldn't. Now, if it was when Senior had it, I would probably went up there and worked. Of course, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have went and worked for WWE, but if I had a choice, I would have went to work for NWA. And it ain't because of Sting. It's because uh, it's a small company, um, and everybody knew you. Uh, and I think it's more because it was just you go out there and you wrestle, okay? WWE, you go out there and you showboat,
Mm,
like a Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Earthquake, Macho Man. And I'm not knocking them. That's what they was paid to do, okay?
right.
But when I've liked it better to be down there working with Dustin Rhodes, Harley Race, Ric Flair, on Henderson, I mean, yeah, you learn more, so, and I've always been a student of the game. I've always been that. I've always wanted to learn more. I've always wanted to be better. I've always wanted to um, learn so much psychology. If it's one guy that I could go back in time and sit and learn from, it would be the American Dream, Dustin Rhodes. God, I wish I was able to just sit and pick his brain, or even just follow him around like a pissant on the shoulder.
Mm,
and just follow him around and listen to him. You would learn so much. When I watch his documentaries and I watch him cutting promos, and when I watch him, classic wrestling, you learn so much from that man. You imagine being a pissant on the wall in them meetings? Oh my God. With him and Ole Anderson and Ric Flair and Arn Anderson and the list goes on. Barry Windham's. I mean, oh my Lord, man, that's just like unreal. You know what I mean? And that's what I learned from Tracy Smothers.
Hmm.
You know, um, Tracy was kind of like Ned Busby. That's why I try to say all the time that Tracy helped more people than he helped himself.
Yeah.
And he helped more people in his business. He helped more people in just general life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And Tracy should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. I said it and I meant it.
Yeah.
Tracy Smothers should be in the Hall of Fame. Should have went in the Hall of Fame a long time ago.
Yeah.
I cannot really stand the WWE Hall of Fame anymore
Hmm.
because it's all about a money thing anymore.
Right.
It's all about putting people in there that I don't think deserve it. Why would you put Snoop Dogg in the Hall of Fame?
Right.
Why would you put all these celebrities in the Hall of Fame because they made one appearance at WrestleMania?
Hmm.
But you got people like Sabu and Tracy Smothers and Wildfire, and I mean the list goes on.
Yeah.
List goes on, and they're not in the Hall of Fame, but Snoop Dogg, your dog, is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What? Are you freaking serious right now?
Hmm.
I just I just do not agree with it. You will never get me to agree with that. Um, I don't know. It just it just pulls my skin. To be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Sabu, God rest his soul. We lost him just recently. And, to the friends and family of Sabu, you're definitely in our thoughts and prayers as well. I mean, heck, he was only, what,
Yes,
60, I think?
yes, 60. Yep.
Sheesh. Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it just blows my mind that this man. I watched the clips that he was at that CZW or whatever it's called,
Hmm.
that stream wrestling, and he jumped in a better than bed wire, that barbed wire
Yeah.
at 60 years old.
Hmm.
Come on now, you know. And this is what I'm about to say now. I mean, I love Sabu, but I'm going to get off of Sabu just for a second because we're talking about ages. Sting is, you know, 60 some years old now, but when he went to WWE, the big match everybody wanted was him versus Taker.
Right.
Well, I'm going to put it out there right now that I don't think Taker wanted to work Sting because he knew he couldn't hang with Sting.
Hmm.
And y'all can say that's because I'm a big Sting fan, but it's not. That is the dang truth. Sting went to AEW and wrestled in AEW for the longest he did. Was he a part of a tag team most of the time? Yes. But he done his craft. He done what he needed to do.
Hmm. Well, and
Tell
if
me
you
the
remember,
last time. Tell me the last three matches that Undertaker had that was great matches.
oh, geez. Um,
The last four matches that Undertaker had that was great matches. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Triple H.
yeah. Well,
The match he had with him and Kane over in Saudi Arabia, that was a train wreck. The match he had with Goldberg was a train wreck. The match he had with um, oh, Roman Reigns,
God,
that match wasn't that good either.
no, it wasn't.
So, and I'm not knocking on Undertaker, okay? I'm not. I thought Undertaker's character is probably one of the greatest characters that was ever made.
Yep.
I would definitely, and he had his run. But don't say the reason why you're not fighting Sting is because you don't think it needs it. You ain't fought. You didn't wrestle Sting because you knew you couldn't hang with him. He went out there and he hung with Triple H with no problem at all.
Mm-mm. And
So,
and
who-
throw this out there, that match he had with Triple H, that was actually the longest match of that card. You know, it was like
yes,
20, maybe a little over 20 minutes.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So, and my biggest thing was this, Andrew, is you you go out and you wrestle. If Sting and Undertaker would have done it, the build up would have sold it.
Hmm.
Go out there and have a 5 minute match. It ain't a crowd out there. The entrances that them two could have had, and the promos, the build up. Go out there and have a 5 minute, 6 minute match, and you stole the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
but
and here's the thing too, JC, is when Sting did finally make his appearance, it was at the Survivor Series 2014. Just you basically just had
mm,
he had a run in in the main event, But
yeah,
prior to that, hell, he had been working TNA on a full time basis for 8 years, 7,
yep.
8 years, and I mean, and he could still go.
And he was having matches with like people like Kurt Angle,
Mm-hmm.
Christian Cage, Jeff Hardy, guys that was still in their prime,
Yep.
and he was keeping up with them. AJ Styles,
Yep.
Samoan Joe, you know, like, that's one thing, like Sting always said. He said he never went because he was afraid he was going to be used wrong.
Yep.
And boy, they did not let him down.
Nope. He had 2 matches where which I mean, he went out there and he gave it his all. But
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. They buried him basically, and well,
It's just
actually,
like
it wasn't they; it was
out there, and
Vince.
it was like the match he went out there and he had with um oh Seth Rollins,
Mm-hmm.
the one that he got hurt on.
Yeah.
So that was a good match.
Yeah.
I mean, it ended bad, but I mean, I know Seth Rollins wasn't meaning to really hurt him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I meant, being honest with you, I mean, it was a good match, all the
Mm.
way up to then.
Yeah.
So that's my outlook in it. You know,
So this is so when Sting came in, this would have been the WrestleMania after that that was WrestleMania 31, which that was a year after the streak ended. Um,
mm,
and Undertaker hadn't been seen since he lost to Brock, and that would have been a perfect time just to have that one off.
yeah,
I know they were really heavily building with Bray Wyatt and Taker, which I mean, honestly, that I think if that match had maybe happened a few years earlier, I think that would have been an incredible match. And I'm not saying it was a bad match, but I mean, at that point, Taker was wrestling part time once, maybe twice a year at that point for a good number of years. And
hmm,
you mentioned those 4 matches, the 2 with Michaels and the 2 with Triple H. The 2 he had with Michaels, bar none, the best by all means.
oh yeah,
Now
yeah,
I will throw one other one in there, and the one he had with CM Punk. That was actually a really good match.
yep,
But
yep,
then a year later, the train wreck with Brock Lesnar happened. But
yep,
I'll give Lesnar credit; he carried the match.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a good match too.
But
I just think that when him and what that made no sense to me is Undertaker's always been the dead guy, right?
right.
Uh, then you got this guy coming up, Bray Wyatt, is kind of like your same gimmick, besides a little twist, and you don't put him over.
Hmm.
Who's that mind you of?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you pit over Brock Lesnar, you pit over Roman Reigns, but the one guy that can take your creation, which you've worked off your butt off for, you don't get over.
Hmm.
That should have been the passing of the torch match.
Yeah, that should have been. I
You
mean,
know.
honestly, that match should have happened the year that the streak was broken. You
Yeah,
know.
and Bray Wyatt should have been the one to break it.
Yeah. But what they do, they fed him to John Cena.
Yeah. And then let John Cena beat him. That's what it. Oh, I've always thought this. This is funny too. We always said, "Don't work for us, brother."
Right.
You Can you imagine Cena versus Hogan? that match would go on for 16,000 hours because neither one of them will want to lose to each other.
Gosh dang. The only way that the only way that match would have worked is if you take Hogan in his prime and you took John Cena when he was, the doctor of thugonomics. That's the only way that that match would have ever happened. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I have a Funko Pop of John Cena's thugonomics run, and personally, I preferred that better than his big baby face push that he got. Which I mean, he
Well,
worked. I mean, he did
for
work
me
baby.
now is this.
Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead and finish what you were going to say.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, he did have a run as a baby face with the Doctor of Thugonomics, but
Yeah,
but
it
but what
wasn't.
but once
Yeah.
that but once he changed his music to My Time Is Now and stuff, that's when I was like, I'm kind of checked out on John Cena now. So
Yeah. My thing is now, he had this big turn at Elimination Chamber, go into Mania as the exact same thing.
hmm
Like he didn't change nothing.
no,
And I'm like, what in the hell is this shit?
yep,
And I'm not a Cody Rhodes guy. Okay. And I tell everybody why I'm not a Cody Rhodes guy.
hmm
I'm not a Cody Rhodes guy is WWE treated Cody Rhodes like crap in WWE back in the day. Did him as Stardust, just crapped all over the Rhodes' name. So he leaves and he reinvents himself and does a great job. And he goes and creates his company with his buddies and Tony Khan's money and doing great. Crowd started booing him. What did he do? Packed his ball and left. I can't be a bad guy. Oh my God. Packed his ball and went to WWE. When WWE got a hell of an ovation working Seth Rollins.
hmm
And then he tore his pec, and then he couldn't do no more damage to it, so he went out there and he worked him in that Hell in a Cell. Great matches. Cody Rhodes is a great athlete. Cody Rhodes has good matches. Don't get me wrong. And this big storyline was finishing his story. God forbid. I'm so glad we never did it. But fighted the first one, lost that match. Then he goes and does it all over again and wins the belt.
hmm
Packs the belt. Hardly ever defended the belt the whole time he had the belt. Um, I'll be honest with you, and I don't watch a lot of wrestling anymore. So, I, I who did he defend that belt against?
Um, let's see. Kevin Owens. I don't remember I
Oh,
remember. I think it was a Saturday night main event, and I believe there was a pay per view. Um, let's see, Solo Sokoa, and that's when Roman made his return back at SummerSlam, and
mm,
obviously John Cena at Mania. I'm not really. I do not remember who he worked against, like at Royal Rumble or any of the other pay per views. To be quite honest.
at the World Rumble, he worked Kevin Owens
Okay.
because that's when Kevin Owens took all them crazy bumps. Because I was at the World Rumble,
Okay.
and he he worked Kevin Owens then, and I just it just blew it just blew my mind how much Kevin Owens done in that match,
Hmm.
and it just like oh man, what are we gonna? So my point of it is this, he won the belt. Okay, yay. That, thank God that's over. Then he has the belt, never defends it, never nothing, and he works not very much. Well, guess what started happening to him again? Started getting booed.
Hmm.
Was he at now?
He ain't been seen.
I don't think that works for him either, brother.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, and I'm gonna quote Stone Cold, and this was back when Roman Reigns was, a baby face and he was getting booed out of the building. If your top baby face is getting booed, they are not a baby face. So what did Roman do? He transitioned, became the tribal chief, the head of the table, and had a hell of a run. Cody could have done the same thing in AEW. He should have just, went on with that. Because I mean, heck, even before Hogan, joined in before the NWO was formed, he was starting to get boos from the fans in WCW because they were tired of it. And
Yep.
I'm going to quote Jimmy Hart: "You got to give the fans what they want."
Right.
Because I mean, that's what's going to keep bringing them back. That's what's going to keep them watching your shows, watching the PLEs, and or attending events and stuff. I mean, but I don't know. Uh, I'm kind of curious to see
Right.
how long he's going to stay gone before he comes back, though.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean that. I don't know. I don't know. I just wonder really if they're going to just throw the belt right back on Cody, like make a full circle out of it, and Cody beats Cena back for the belt. I'm thinking that Cena's final match is going to be against The Rock.
hmm,
It's got to be. Uh, I think Cena goes back baby, and I think it's Cena versus Rock. His final match, and he beats Rock, and he rides out in the sunset.
well,
Cena,
I'm no
Cena is
expert.
not leaving as a heel.
Yeah, I'm no expert, but the last time those two had a match was 12 years ago at Mania 29, and that match it wasn't as good as the one they had the year before. I mean, so there is that possibility they could still pull out a good match, but the last time they shared a ring together in a match was well over a decade ago. So really don't know how really don't know how that
I
match is going
mean,
to go.
I think the match between Cody and Cena sucked. I think the match between Cena and Randy Orton sucked. Now, it's not Randy Orton's fault, and it's not Cody's fault.
No.
I think Cena is past his prime. Cena, you know, he should have made this farewell tour a couple years back. In my personal opinion, but
Yeah.
I like Cena about as much as I like Hogan. So if that tells you anything.
Yes, sir. Well, well, JC, we're gonna have to wrap this up. We're about at our time limit, but I do want to thank you again for coming on to Grizzly's Cave, and definitely got to have you on
Hey,
here.
anytime, brother.
Got to definitely have you on for a part three. And
Yeah.
for those that listen to this podcast, thank you again for your support. And JC was actually saying, man, a lot of people's been asking, when's there going to be a part two and stuff, and it finally happened, and definitely appreciate the push from you fans. And yeah, I mean, I'll keep this going as long as I can. I may actually have Justin Style next week as a guest because we never have gotten around to our part two. He might actually that might actually be here in person, and but y'all keep your ears out for that. Before I go, I do want to plug again the GoFundMe account. It is Help Ben Build a Future for Indie Wrestling Stars. The link is gofund.me/9, B as in boy, 2, F as in Frank, C as in Charles, 903. And again, the next NAW event will be Saturday, June 14th at 7 p.m. at Nebo Community Center in Nebo, Kentucky. The doors will open at 6 p.m. and ticket prices are ages 0 to 5 is free. It'll be $5 for anyone ages 6 to 12 and $8 for anyone ages 13 and up. And again, it is a family friendly promotion, and folks, you will not be disappointed. Um, anytime you folks show up, I mean, you all steal the show with how loud y'all get and stuff. It's like what JC said earlier, just the roar of the crowd. I mean, that's stuff that we live for, and we greatly appreciate your support. Um, Again, JC, I love you, brother. Definitely glad you were here on the show again, and definitely look forward to have a part three with you.
Yeah. And it's been an honor, privilege, and most definitely, like I said before, as soon as I get after I get my testes and all that stuff back, then I would love to come on and share the whole story about all that.
Well, absolutely. And, folks, definitely keep JC in your thoughts and your prayers. Again, keep Mr. Cotton in your thoughts and your prayers, and as well as the family and friends of Sabu as well. And JC, it's always an honor and a privilege to talk with you and have you here on the show and talk with you for several hours on the phone. So it's definitely an honor and a privilege to have you here as well, sir. And I appreciate you taking your time to come join me and stuff. And it's kind of hard to believe that we've almost hit 3 hours already. So
And we still got a lot we can talk about.
yes, sir. All right, folks. Well, for JC Flash, this is Grizzly Andrew signing out, saying take care and God bless.